If you'd asked anyone in my family, they would have told you I was the responsible one. I was Leah Benton. 27, divorced, no kids, living back in my parents' old split level in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't have a better option, at least not then. After my marriage collapsed, I came home with 2 suitcases and a broken lease. The plan was to stay 3 months, long enough to regroup, find stable work, and get back on my feet. My parents, Ed and Marlene, were surprisingly kind at first. My sisters, not so much. "You're lucky Mom and Dad are so patient," my oldest sister Kara said. Over Sunday roast, her diamond ring catching the light just right. Mine would have told me to figure it out. "Of course they're patient," said Dana, the middle one. "Leah's always been the quiet one, the helper, that word, helper." That's how I became invisible. At first I tried to earn my place. I took over the grocery runs, handled the utility bills, mowed the lawn when Dad's arthritis flared up. I landed a steady job as a dental office administrator in town. Solid pay, benefits. I offered to contribute rent. "Don't be silly," Mom had said, patting my hand. "Save your money," so I did. But I still paid for little things, gas for their car. Marlene's new prescription lenses. The furnace inspection Dad kept delaying. It felt good at first, like I was useful again, like I mattered. But something shifted after the first year. Kara stopped inviting me to family brunches. She said it was just for couples. Dana asked me to dog sit every time she and her husband flew out for his job. I rarely got a thank you, but I always said yes. At home, Mom started complaining about how much I was in the kitchen. "Leave space for other people, Leah," even though I was the one who cooked. Dad sighed when I used the washer during a Packers game. "Gotta pick your time better," he muttered, even though he hadn't told me a schedule. And slowly I realized I wasn't a guest anymore. I wasn't even a family member. I was the housekeeper. They didn't pay the wallet. They didn't refill the presents they tolerated. Still I stayed, because I thought that's what good daughters did. They showed up. They didn't complain. They kept giving even when it started to hurt. But pain is patient. It waits for you to notice. And when you finally do, it's already carved out a room in your chest and made itself at home. One night I stood at the sink after dinner washing dishes Kara had left behind, listening to her laugh in the living room with Mom up about some real estate flip they were scheming. They never include me in those plans, I told myself. But that's okay. I'm not really part of that world. Then I heard Mom say softly, but clearly, I don't know how she ended up like this. No ambition, no man. Just here. I didn't drop the dish. I didn't shout. I dried my hands and went upstairs. But that sentence didn't just sting. It started the slow unraveling of everything I thought we were. There's something cruel about sitting at a dinner table where no one remembers to set a place for you. It wasn't always like that. The first year back, Marlene made space. She even added a candle some nights, asked about my day. Kara brought wine. Dana teased me about my lack of dating life, but still passed the potatoes without smirking. But by year 2, it was as if I'd faded. Not suddenly, just softly. One Sunday evening, the table was full. Mom, Dad, both sisters. Kara's husband, Greg, Dana's teenage twins. Plates, napkins, wine glasses. Conversation flowed around the table like a warm current. I stood by the kitchen doorway waiting. No plate, no fork, no seat. Mom looked up and blinked. "Oh, Leah, grab a plate from the hutch, will you?" Like I was late, like I was extra. I found an old salad plate mismatched. Ate standing by the counter while Dana laughed about college tours for her oldest, and Kara talked about bathroom tile colors for the lake house. No one asked me how work was going. No one noticed I was eating off a paper towel. Later that night, I cleared the table as always, scraping mashed potatoes into the trash, while Greg watched the game and Mom scrolled Facebook. "You really don't have to do all that," she said lazily, not looking up. "I know," I said, but I did it anyway. Because if I wasn't the helper, then what was I? At work, people called me by name. Patients smiled when I remembered their kids' names, or that they hated the cinnamon polish. The dentist I worked for once said, "You're the reason this place runs, Leah." But at home, I was a background sound, a light switch, useful but invisible. Things came to a quiet head one afternoon when I came home early from work. The house was too quiet. Mom's car was out front, but the kitchen was empty. Voices drifted from the back porch, laughing, clinking glasses. I opened the door and froze. It was a full family barbecue. Dana's family, Kara's, Greg's co-workers, burgers on the grill, patio umbrella up, music playing. My chair, the one I usually pulled up from the garage, wasn't there. Neither was I. No one had told me. Marlene turned, saw me, and gave a little jump. "Oh, Leah, we didn't think you'd be home this early." "I get off at 4 on Thursdays," I said. Well, this was just a spontaneous little get-together. Nothing big. I looked around. Paper plates stacked neatly, color-coded cups. Even the dog had a dish of water. But you invited the neighbors. They were just walking by. She shrugged. Greg raised a hand from the grill. "Want a burger?" I shook my head. I'm not hungry. But that wasn't true. I was starving, not for food, for inclusion, for acknowledgement. For the smallest gesture that said, "You matter." That night I sat in the garage on a folding chair beside the water heater and wrote one sentence in my notebook. When you are only loved for what you give, they'll hate you the second you stop giving. I closed the notebook and made a silent promise I'd stop. Not all at once, but soon, quietly. Because disappearing was something they had already trained me to do. It started with lasagna, not a fight, not a raised voice. Just a bubbling tray of Marlene's special Sunday bake, slightly burnt on the edges and still steaming when she set it down on the table. Everyone had already sat except me, again. I fetched a plate from the hutch without a word, took the cracked folding chair from the hallway, and tried to act like it didn't bother me. But tonight, something inside me itched, an invisible splinter, buried too deep. Leah, Mom said halfway through the meal, her fork tapping glass. "Do you think you'll be able to cover the heating bill again this month?" I looked up. Everyone else kept eating. "I thought that was included in rent," I said, calmly. Greg chuckled. "Rent?" Marlene blinked. "We've never asked you to pay rent, sweetheart." "I know," I said. "But I've paid every bill since last fall. And I just wanted to ask, are we calling it rent now or something else?" Silence fell. Dad set his fork down slowly. "What's this about?" he asked. "I just want to understand the rules," I said. "If I'm paying half the utilities, buying groceries, cooking, cleaning, staying out of your way, what am I to you? A tenant, a maid?" Kara scoffed. "Oh, come on, Leah. Don't make this weird. You live here for free." I looked directly at her. "Do I?" The air shifted. Dana's kids looked up, sensing tension, but not understanding why. "You're sounding ungrateful," Marlene said. Not cold, worse, dismissive. Ungrateful, that word hit me like a slap. "I've lived here for 2.5 years," I said. "I pay for half this house to run. You've asked me to cover repairs, medicine, taxes, groceries, but when I ask for a seat at the table, literally or figuratively, I get treated like an interruption." "No one asked you to do those things," Dad said sharply. "You chose to." "I chose to because I thought we were a family," I said. "I thought I was helping. I didn't realize I was just convenient." Marlene's voice cut through the room. "Leah, you need to stop making everything about you." Greg muttered something. Kara laughed, quiet and cruel. Dana folded her napkin like she couldn't wait to be done. I stood slowly. "You know what? You're right, I've made too much about you for too long. I'll fix that." "Sit down," Dad said, voice rising. "We're not finished here." "I am," I said. "I've been finished. You just didn't notice." Kara rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. You're almost 30 and still living at home. That's the real issue." And that's when I broke. Not loud, not messy, but in that clear, frozen way a window shatters when a stone finally lands. "You know what's dramatic," I said. "Being erased by the people I sacrificed for. Watching you hand praise to people who show up twice a month while I'm paying your bills. Hearing my mother call me a burden behind my back and then ask me to fix the furnace." Everyone froze, except Dad. "You're ungrateful," he barked, pointing at me like I was a stain. "Get out, and don't come back." It was so quiet afterward, I could hear the lasagna still bubbling. I nodded once, turned around, and walked upstairs. The thing about breaking points is they look like endings, but sometimes they're exits. And mine had just opened. I didn't cry, not while packing, not while folding the same shirts I'd once brought back in defeat after the divorce, not even when I unplugged my phone charger from the outlet next to the bed I grew up in. Everything I own now fit into 3 bags, one for clothes, one for work and documents, one for memories I hadn't had the strength to throw away yet. I left behind the vacuum, I bought the coffee maker I brought home from my old apartment, the new curtains. I hung last fall with no thanks and no comment. I could hear Kara and Greg laughing faintly downstairs like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just been told to get out and never return. They probably thought I'd cry in my room, cool off, come back down with an apology and maybe a check. But I'd spent years trying to apologize for taking up space. Tonight I chose not to. As I zipped the final bag, I stared at my reflection in the closet mirror. Same face, same eyes, but something had shifted. I wasn't broken. I was done. I walked down the stairs slowly, one hand on the banister, the other gripping the strap of my duffel. No one looked up, not even Marlene. I paused at the entryway, stared at the family photo on the wall, Christmas 2018. We were all smiling. I remembered that night. I had paid for the matching sweaters. Without a word, I placed the house key on the foyer table. Then I opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Late spring in Wisconsin was still unpredictable like that. As I stepped out onto the porch, Dad finally spoke. "You're really doing this?" I didn't turn around. "You told me to." A beat of silence. Then, "Don't expect us to come chasing after you." "I'm not," I said. Then I shut the door behind me. Not with a slam, not quite, but with enough weight to make the glass rattle. Enough to be heard. Outside, my car waited like an accomplice. Emma's text lit up my screen before I even started the engine. "Got the guest room ready, doors open, come breathe." I smiled despite everything. For the first time in years, I was leaving not because I was rejected, but because I finally recognized my own worth. They hadn't kicked me out. They just confirmed what I'd already known. That love without respect isn't really love at all. And I had 3 bags to prove it. Emma lived 20 minutes away in a little 2-bedroom duplex behind the hardware store. Her house smelled like vanilla and dryer sheets, and there was always music playing. Faintly from her kitchen speaker, usually jazz, sometimes old Fleetwood Mac. That first night I didn't speak much. I dropped my bags by the door, accepted the mug of tea she handed me, and curled up on her couch under a fleece blanket that didn't belong to any memory of mine. "You don't have to explain," she said. And I didn't, not yet. The silence wrapped itself around me like a weighted quilt. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't cold. It didn't punish, it just was. No one needed groceries, no one left dirty dishes in the sink, no one asked about the heating bill. In the mornings I left early for work. In the evenings I came back and cooked for 2. Emma worked late most nights but left me notes on the fridge. "Your pasta bake slapped. Bless you. Don't forget book club Friday. You're coming. Made coffee, you're welcome." I had my own towel, my own hook by the door, my own key. It was astonishing how much I'd missed the feeling of being seen without being drained. Week 3, something small but sharp happened. I bought a new set of bedsheets. Nothing fancy, gray cotton Target clearance. I didn't text anyone for permission. I didn't check the account 5 times first. At checkout, the cashier smiled. "First place," I blinked. "What first apartment?" "You've got that my money, my bed, my rules look." I laughed. Honest, surprised, a little shaky. Something like that. I folded the receipt into my wallet like it was something sacred. I didn't tell my family where I'd gone. Not because I was hiding, because they didn't ask. The first week, nothing. Second week, silence. By the 5th week, I knew what that meant. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did. I started therapy. Emma gently nudged me toward it, and I resisted at first. "I'm not broken," I said. She smiled. "Neither is a car that gets an oil change." Dr. Lowell, my therapist, was calm and sharp-eyed. She asked good questions. She never filled silences too soon. "Do you feel guilty for leaving?" she asked. "No," I said, then paused. "Yes, but not because I hurt them, because I think I stopped earning my place." She nodded slowly. "And what would happen if your place didn't have to be earned?" That question lodged itself somewhere under my ribs. I spent weekends walking by the lake, buying coffee without counting coins, reading novels I never had time for when I was everybody's everything. I bought a blue sweater. I started painting again. Once I looked in the mirror and thought, this person looks okay, maybe even whole. At night, I sometimes reached for my phone half expecting a text. Not because I hoped for an apology, but because part of me wanted them to notice I was gone. They didn't. Not until exactly 3 months and 10 days later. And when the message came, it wasn't "we miss you," it was, "Why haven't you paid the mortgage?" It happened on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of selecting a shade of blue for Emma's bathroom wall. She wanted something between storm cloud and half-hearted denim when my phone buzzed. A number I knew by heart, though I hadn't seen it in months. Dad. No emoji, no preview text, just his name. I froze. Emma looked up from the paint samples. "You okay?" I showed her the screen. She raised an eyebrow. "You gonna open it?" I nodded and tapped. The message was short. So short, I read it twice. "Why haven't you paid the mortgage? No hi. No hope you're okay. No we miss you. Just the bill." I stared at the words, the numbness replaced by something sharper clarity. They hadn't noticed I was gone. They'd noticed the money was. Emma read it over my shoulder. "Wow. Yeah. What are you going to say?" I didn't answer right away. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water I didn't drink, stared out at the small backyard where her dog liked to dig under the bird bath. Then I picked up my phone and typed 4 words. I thought I wasn't welcome. I hit send, sat down, waited. The reply came less than a minute later. "We didn't mean it like that." Things were said in anger. "Don't be petty. This is serious. Serious." Now it was serious. Not when I left with 3 bags. Not when no one called for 3 months. Not when I paid their bills for 2 years without thanks. But now it was serious. I didn't respond. The phone buzzed again, then again. "We're behind. The bank sent something. Can't you just help even if you don't move back?" I let the screen dim to black. That night I drafted a reply. Not out of spite, out of peace. Because when someone finally shows you what you are to them, believe them. "Hi, Dad. I'm sorry the mortgage is behind. I understand it must be stressful, but I'm no longer involved with the house as you made very clear. You told me to leave. You told me you didn't want my help. I've respected that. I hope you will too. Take care. Leah." I hit send, then I blocked the number, not to punish, to protect. Because sometimes silence isn't cruel, it's a boundary. And mine had just been drawn sharp and clean. The next morning I woke up early. Sunlight on the wall, birds on the wire, the dog snoring by the door, and no one asked me for money. It was the quietest freedom I'd ever known. I thought that would be the end. One clear civil message, one boundary respected, one silence kept. But 2 days later, a new message came, this time from Kara. "This is ridiculous. You're going to let our parents lose the house out of spite. Grow up. Be useful for once." I read it once, then again, just to be sure I wasn't imagining the wording. Be useful for once. Like I hadn't been paying their bills, like I hadn't traded years of my life for their comfort, like I was an appliance and they were mad I'd finally unplugged. Later that night, another message arrived. This one from Dana. "They're going to lose everything, Leah. Is that what you want? Mom's not sleeping. Dad looks awful. Just do the right thing. You don't have to come back. Just send the money. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just pressure wrapped in emotional ransom. They didn't want me back. They wanted me obedient." Emma found me staring at my phone. She didn't say anything at first, just brought me tea and sat down. "You okay?" she asked eventually. "I don't think they're even mad that I left," I said quietly. "I think they're mad that I stayed gone." Emma nodded. "And that you're still standing." I didn't reply to either message that night. Instead, I opened my notes app and wrote the last thing I'd ever send them. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't revenge. It was a mirror. To all of you, I didn't walk away because I stopped caring. I walked away because caring had become a transaction. I gave time, money, energy, quietly, constantly, and in return, I was erased. You told me to leave. You made sure I felt like a burden. You didn't reach out until the money stopped. That's not family. That's usage. I'm not your emergency fund. I'm not your maid. I'm not your scapegoat. I'm done explaining my worth. I'm done being the good daughter. Take care of yourselves. Leah, I hit send. Then deleted the entire thread. Blocked Kara, blocked Dana. Then I opened my email and finalized a lease on a small sunlit studio in Madison, close enough to the lake, far enough from the past. I hung a print near the window that said, "Peace is not passive, it's earned." And I slept that night without waiting for my phone to ring. 3 months later, Emma and I took a road trip down the coast. The radio played Fleetwood Mac. The windows were down, and no one asked me for anything. I was still Leah Benton, still kind, still thoughtful, still quiet, but no longer convenient, and never again invisible.